Women Talking Soccer. I'm your host, Carrie Taylor. The goal of this podcast is to amplify the voices of all women who love the beautiful game. Whether you're on the field, cheering from the stands, work in the business, or want to be in the business, or even if you're a passionate change maker, your voice is important. This podcast is presented by Women in Soccer. Women in Soccer is a network of women and allies involved in our favorite sport. You can join Women in Soccer for free online at womeninsoccer.org. Our first few podcasts will be highlighting the founders and the board members of this new group. And today I'm joined with one of our board members, Maggie Ntim. Maggie, thanks for joining us. And can you give our listeners a little bit about your background within the game and who you are and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, Carrie, for having me. Just super excited to be a part of this. Like you said, I'll get straight into it. So obviously I'm Maggie Ntim. I'm the partnerships captain for Women in Soccer board member, a part of the board. So I'm super excited about it. And I'm also, my day-to-day, I'm an agent, FIFA agent, as well as a CEO of Trinity 3 Agency, partnership marketer, event planner, a little bit of everything, the Jackie of all trades, as I like to call it.
There you go, the Jackie. I love that.
Yes, the Jackie of all trades. And so, being in the space, being in the soccer space, mainly on the business side, like you mentioned, it's fun. It has its challenges, but it's fun. And, I'm just excited to get into it today.
Yes. Well, we are definitely excited to have you. When did you decide to jump into soccer? Did you play it growing up? Did you just, happen on it? Like what really drew you to want to work within the game?
So when I was younger, I didn't play, like with an academy. I played recreationally, like kicked the ball here and there around. Family couldn't afford to get me into the program, let alone get me a soccer ball. So I
Right.
was kicking around a basketball, like, as if it was a soccer ball and just kind of getting familiar with the game. But as I grew older and started, working within the entertainment business and then crossing over into sports, I was able to work within different sports arenas. But when I finally got a chance to work within soccer, it was mainly as a partner, so on the marketing side, and working for companies like Coca-Cola, where two of my accounts were FIFA and MLS. And so being able to work on different projects within there gave me a chance to kind of see more of what goes on behind the scenes of the actual game. So whether that's the World Cup, how you're planning that out, if it's for MLS, whether it's teams, activations, etc. So that was my way of learning a little bit about the game. And then, of course, getting in and working with athletes and being able to work with those athletes on marketing. That was a whole nother side, but it was something that I was used to doing prior to soccer because I was working with artists and other athletes and other sports. So it wasn't really new. But wanting to pursue the career to be an agent was number one for me. And when I finally was able to do that, I was like, okay, this is it for me. I'm in the right place.
Right.
I'm in the right space. So.
Right. So what do you see as some of the challenges that you see for women on the field, off the field, in the business? What are some of the things that maybe you've experienced or some of your clients have experienced, and like things that we need to change going forward?
So a lot of the challenges, or at least the direct ones, obviously, is being a woman in this space and being taken seriously, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always try to tell people, don't look at me as a female agent,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's kind of hard, but obviously
Right.
don't look at me as a female agent. Look at me as one of the agents
Mm-hmm.
that can get the job done, understands the game, understands the business. And so that's a huge challenge, is being taken seriously as a woman, because you have to prove yourself.
Yep.
You
Exactly.
have to prove yourself. But it doesn't mean that as a woman, we don't understand the sport or we don't understand the business. A lot of times we understand it and we can do it a lot better. So
Amen to
it's
that.
overcoming. Yeah, it's overcoming those challenges. And then I think also too, you know, I mean, how like where do I start, right? Because it's different areas, it's different layers. I think for me, not just being a female, but then also being African American,
Right.
that can also be a challenge too, because once again, you have to prove yourself, right? You got
Mm-hmm.
to prove yourself that you know the game, you know the sport, you understand it. And so I think overcoming it is something that is going to take time. It's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. But I think the more women that we have in the sport on the business side, whether that's being a coach,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's being a GM, whether that's being a sporting director, a scout,
Yep.
or an agent or an attorney, the more women we have in those fields, the better. Because then at some point, they will have to start saying, okay, yeah, these women are nothing to play with.
Right.
They're nothing to play with. And we're making small strides by obviously seeing like some, two GMs in WSL,
Right.
seeing the commissioner, so we're making some strides, but there's still a lot more work to be done.
Yeah. And the one thing that I've felt within my own career is just overcoming the unconscious bias,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you've experienced this. You could walk into a room of agents and like they're trying to figure out like, is she an agent? What's she doing? Like, is she
Hmm.
organizing this meeting? Like I've taught coaching licenses and I walk in and they're like, oh, you must be the admin. And I'm like, no, I'm actually your instructor. And what's your name again? And
Yep.
so
Yep.
it's just, making more women in the game a norm, not an outlier. And that's something, that's a challenge for you, it's a challenge for me, it's a challenge for all of us within the game. And part of this new women in soccer network, I think, is going to help all of us overcome some of those challenges and maybe educate some other people in the game to overcome their unconscious biases. So, my next question basically is how you came to be involved with women in soccer, like how that all happened, and what is your piece of the pie? What's your special ingredient to add to the Women in Soccer network?
Yeah. So I was introduced to women in soccer through a friend, U.S.A Balgon, who obviously is a part of Women in Soccer as well. And just from networking with her and, obviously keeping the relationship going and talking over a period of time, my thing was like I was looking for an organization or something that was created for the women and just for people in soccer in America that can network and help each other out at some point. And then she mentioned Women in Soccer and how that was getting started. And I said, wait, I did some Google research on it. And I was like, yeah, I think I came across it. And so it was even great to know that she was a part of it. And then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, to like meet other people like yourself and Kadani and so many others that are a part of it. And I was like, oh, this is what I want to be a part of. And as far as figuring out my role, when you're the Jackie of all trades, it's kind of hard, but you got to like find your specialty, find your niche. So I'm like,
Right.
okay, if this is women in soccer, obviously it's not where I'm signing players, but this is a chance for me to bring in my players. This is a chance for me to bring in my relationships. And so I think the perfect area for me was on the partnership side, being
Mm-hmm.
able to create those partnerships as well as like event programming and stuff. I'm very good at coming up with different events and fully executing those events. So
Right.
I'm really looking forward to the future of women in soccer and what we do. I think it's game changing. I think it's going to be very. I don't think I know it's going to be very exciting, and it's just going to be that great network for women in the space.
Right. And you mentioned bringing in some of your athletes into this
Mhm.
space. Can you talk about, maybe who some of those athletes are and what
Absolutely,
types of things you bring to them in order to like increase their visibility, increase their platform within
absolutely.
their career?
Yeah, so one of the athletes being Samantha Johnson, who is, she was, so Samantha Johnson was actually my first woman footballer that I signed.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, I was working with, two male on the marketing side within soccer, and then also had signed two other male soccer players. And so I definitely wanted to work within the women's space.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the first, her and I had a great relationship. We've been talking, we have mutual friends. And so it was only right to kind of like get her out of retirement and all that stuff
Right.
and um tell her like, okay, you're gonna play, because I'm a fan and I want to see you play. And so bringing her into women in soccer is like perfect because I feel like she's a really great ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
She's, passionate about the game. And then also too has great influence amongst her peers. And they respect her and they know that, oh, if this is something she's a part of, then we definitely want to be a part of it. And so, yes, was working with athletes like her and working with some other athletes like Jamia Fields and a couple of other um, players within.
Yeah. And so, how do you think female players differ from male players in their branding and their marketability, and how do you actually help them elevate themselves within the game?
Very good question. Many people will say, oh, they're all athletes, but there is a difference. There is a difference when we look at sponsorships and the percentages and the dollar amounts that are being spent. Only about maybe what 1%
Mm-hmm.
or so goes towards like women sponsorships, and that 1% probably goes across hockey to and not even hockey, WNBA, maybe tennis, maybe volleyball. Probably a small percentage of that, or maybe half of that, even goes into like the women's soccer. So for me, there's a huge difference. On the men's side, it's, a lot of times within sports, it's a little bit easier, but it's still a challenge to market them as well, depending on where they're playing, what city they're playing, what sport they're playing in. And then on the women's side, it's, the same, because it's like, oh, well, we want this woman.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to tell my, athletes, everything I do differently. It's nothing of the norm.
Right.
And so what that means is when it comes down to marketing, we're going to do this very differently. We are not going to go after the same brands that you see everyone else going after. We're going to go
Right.
after the brands that resonate with you and
Mm-hmm.
who you are. So if you are someone that is into a beauty brand, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a specific makeup company that you like, but it's not the mainstream, let's talk to that company and
Right.
see about forging some type of partnership. And so it's just really coming up with a strategy based off of who that player is,
Mm-hmm.
their personality. Sometimes people think it's just on the field. No, a lot of times you can get a partnership deal just based off of what you're doing off the field,
Right.
because you're that involved and you're doing, such great things that it really doesn't get that much media attention,
Mm-hmm.
so it's ways like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's something, I'm just going to kind of say this with my experience being in the men's game. I haven't necessarily seen a lot of agents really connect with their clients and say, what do you eat? What do you like to do? Like, what workouts do you like to do? And really have those synergies going on behind the scenes. And like you said, connect with brands that actually resonate with that
Yep.
athlete. And, I think
Yeah.
that's something that I feel needs to grow within the women's game even more, because we're almost at this precipice of really like advancing the league, our athletes, the front office staff, women, all of that in the game, coming off the 2019 World Cup, coming off the great viewership increases within the National Women's Soccer League. How has 2020, the challenges actually opened doors maybe for you and your clients? Has it been a positive? Has it made you think in different ways? Like how has this year really kind of impacted all the gears working in your head for your athletes?
Well, it definitely has, definitely, the change in strategies, right? So, with my company, Trinity 3 Agency, we still implement the same strategies that we've always had, but we
Mm-hmm.
had to tweak them just a little bit, because we always had the what if, the
Mm-hmm.
plan B. In case plan A doesn't work, what do we do with plan B? So we weren't really stuck, as a lot of people were, trying
Right.
to figure things out. We kind of just resorted to plan B and said, okay, this is what we're going to do for our athletes. And I think what it is too is, one of the things I kept saying to a lot of my athletes is, this is the time to use your social media. If you've never used your social media before, this is the best way. We were all stuck in the house. Take advantage of your social media. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can get on IG Live and talk to your fans, or you can, even do certain things from home.
Right.
for me, it wasn't much of an adjustment because I'm used to doing a lot remotely, no matter
Mhm.
where I am.
Right.
Right. So it wasn't that hard for me. It was just having my athletes understand like what, these are different tactics that you can do. I think one of the things that was really cool during this time that I was able to do was work with new athletes. For me, I got the opportunity to work with Midge Purse,
Mhm.
who, she's not someone that I represent, but is someone that I know. And it was great for us to collab and work together.
Mhm.
And, we put her a part of a huge brand, Voss Water, and we created an amazing marketing campaign to be able to give back to, the frontline healthcare workers.
Mhm.
And it was great because not only was it a new experience for Midge, because she's never really had a premium brand to say, we want to endorse you and be a part of this, but also for that brand, they never worked with soccer players at all.
Right.
So this was the first time for them to work with a soccer player, and not just a soccer player, but a female soccer player.
Right.
So it was just the perfect match, perfect partnership, perfect project, perfect campaign. And that's something that eventually now this brand is looking to do more within soccer. So
Mhm.
it's exciting. So I'm looking forward to the next steps of what comes with projects like that.
Yeah. No, it's what I've seen as kind of, looking at this particular athletes. To me, it seems in the past, at least within the women's game in the U.S., it was only the national team players who were getting partnerships with brands. And now, as an outsider kind of
And it's
looking
not even
in,
all the national
right.
team.
It
I
was
mean,
like
Carrie,
five
if
or
we get
six.
into it,
Yeah.
here, we'll be here all day
Yeah.
discussing the breakdown of each
Well,
athlete. Okay.
I know where you're going. Like it wasn't representing, the multicultural outreach. It wasn't
Not even
representing
that. It's just it
like,
was probably like two, like maybe three players,
yeah,
right? If we go through the U.S., this is just
yeah,
U.S. If we go through the U.S. national team and we look at all those players, maybe three, the
right,
most, have endorsements, and I'm not even talking about the Nike endorsement, like the
right,
boot deal.
right.
I'm talking about
Just any brand.
beyond
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yep. And then some of them, that's all they have is the Nike boot deal.
Right.
So,
Well,
and a
those
majority of them are represented by the same agent. I'm
right.
sorry. See,
Yeah. No,
now you got me
don't
going. You got me
apologize.
started now.
This is why this is called Women Talking Soccer,
Yes,
because we are talking about how to change and impact
yes,
the game. And these are the issues that need to be spoken about. I mean,
yes.
the biggest,
A majority of them are represented by the same agent.
yeah.
And to me, I can't see how. I'm just speaking for me personally, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even speaking from an agent hat. I'm speaking from just as a woman,
Yeah.
as if I were an athlete and I were represented by the same agent, same company, and it is about five of us, and we all are teammates playing on the same team, and
Mm-hmm.
I see two getting the endorsements. Now, it's not being envious or jealous, but it's like at the same time, man, this
Right.
one player probably has like 10 endorsements. You mean to tell me out of that endorsement you couldn't work an
You
agreement out
couldn't
to
divvy up the
where
cards a little bit. Yeah.
to where you can offer them like a 2-for-1 and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
for this deal, I give you 3 of these girls,
Yeah.
and they're all good, and you can't tell me they're not good. They're on the national team. They're probably like what we consider mostly in sports like the franchise player of their team. You
Mm-hmm.
mean to tell me that you couldn't work something out to say, hey, I'll give you, I'm gonna put it out there because me, I
Yeah.
don't
Put it out
care.
there.
I, you can't tell me that Body Armor couldn't say we'll take Megan Rapinoe and Crystal Dunn.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and even and if it were me, and I had both of those girls, and I went after Body Armor, let me tell you how this connection would be even deeper. Body Armor is headquartered out of Queens, New York.
Hmm.
Crystal Dunn is from New Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Queens, New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
So New Hyde Park to Queens to exactly where Body Armor headquarters are is about maybe 15 minutes away,
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 minutes. That alone is a local connection.
Yeah.
She's a New Yorker.
I mean, makes
Many
sense.
people don't even
Makes
many
sense
people
to
don't
me.
even know that.
Yeah.
Many people don't even know that.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about the impact of the game. I mean, that's a whole nother ball game. But why you could partner with Crystal Dunn. You can go back to New Hyde Park, her old school.
Mm-hmm.
You could either build a pitch with a partnership of Body Armor, or you can hold a summer camp in her neighborhood, and it's sponsored by Body Armor.
Yep.
And
Well,
that's just getting all of the local soccer girls that are
yep.
huge fans to come out and support. But that's just me.
No, well, that's why you're good at what you do.
That's just me.
And that's why, you're my agent. And we need to talk about my
You guys heard
interests
it here. You
off the
guys heard
field.
it here. You guys heard it. If you haven't known, yes.
Yes.
Carrie's my first coach. First coach. So I'm super excited. Like, I've always thought about representing coaches, but when her and I had that conversation, I was like, it's Carrie. Like, I remember reaching out to you when you were at U.S.A, when you were there with your former team, and I was like, man, she's a real one, because not only did she like respond, but she also like, just embraced me as a new, agent. Many people would probably be like, oh no, we have our relationships already, we don't need to talk to anyone. Right. And that right there just let me know, like, that's a woman that, I want to work with at some point, because you're open, right? Because we always talk about women empowerment, and we talk about supporting each other, but sometimes you don't get that.
Oh, yeah.
You don't get that.
Right.
And then you're fierce. So it's like, like it's only right. So,
well, thank you for that. And you're fierce as well. That's why I am excited to continue, where down this road and explore new things together. And I think that's one thing that I learned, like working within U.S.A in the men's game. All of the coaches in the men's game, maybe not all, but a majority of the coaches have agents. And I sat back and said, well, I'm a professional. Okay, why don't I have an agent?
Yeah.
And I think, that goes into the fact a lot of times women don't want to put themselves out there. They don't want to maybe they don't know how to advocate for themselves, or, even the players, like some of the players, female players, I'm sure not all of them have agents either. And, they might be trying to just negotiate on their own. And so it's about, part of the reason that I'm personally involved with this new women in soccer group is I want to share all of like my experiences and my missteps and my failures and my successes with other people, so that maybe they don't have to go through the same things I did, or to help empower women to change their frame of reference of how they think about themselves. If you want to get it, if you're a female and you want to get into the men's game, go for it. If you want to be a GM, say you want to be a GM and put yourself out there and talk to people and learn from other people. So, I feel as if, you obviously you believe in that, and like thinking differently and how to frame and embrace the power of women within the game. And that's why, the women that you represent, the men that you represent, even, like, they're lucky to be with you, because it's not just a cookie cutter thing of, you're on my roster and okay, like, let's get the deal done. And that's something that I really respect,
and that's how it's going to always be.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to always be. I'm very selective with players that I sign, because it's not just what you can do on the field, but it's what you can do off the field. It's your goals. Do you have goals, right? Because even as a coach, you could still have goals too. There may be other projects, other ventures you want to get into while you're still coaching. You may say, I want to start my own coaching class, so that's my job, to help, not just secure you your place of employment, but helping you accomplish all those goals that you need to off the field. And another even requirement for me to even sign a player just to my agency is the involvement within charity foundation. Many people tell me why. And I'm like, it means everything to me to give back. That's something that it's a lifestyle for me. It's not something I do for the moment.
Right.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. And so I expect the players that I'm working with, and any client for that matter, to have that. For the players, they need to have an idea of what charity they're a fan of, or if there's one that they do want to start. When I look at two of my players, Samantha and Hugh Roberts was my first full service player, right, that I
Mm-hmm.
signed. We started a foundation just about 2 months ago. We started his foundation in Charlotte, and it's amazing. It's doing great work with Samantha. We're doing great work with the community in Chicago, and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
expand to different, you know, cities. And so it's things like that where they're able to give back, and it's like, hey, we're really helping the youth,
Right.
because these kids, they look up to them,
Yeah.
and sometimes you don't have to be the Megan Rapinos and all of that. Um, Nothing against Megan Rapinoe right
Right.
away either,
No,
but
yeah. No, I
it's
know what
like
you're
you
saying.
you
Yeah.
don't have to be that level to be able to give back and
Yeah.
do different things. You can
Yeah.
still do it, and as long as you have the right team behind you, anything is possible.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and I also think it's good within your role to help the athletes prep for life after soccer, because I've seen it a lot of times. A lot of times that the athletes don't prepare of what's next,
yep, yep,
and that's a big issue. I asked a player a couple months ago, like, what would you do if you didn't do soccer? And this player never even thought about it, and there is a life after soccer, and it's
yep,
about laying the foundation of what's next while you have your platform, while you have your reach,
exactly,
and thinking long term. And that's that's
exactly,
that's something I see as super important, and that's where you can also help, and where you do also help your athletes.
absolutely, absolutely.
You should teach a class on that, I think. Maybe that's a
Yeah,
webinar for
I've been
women in
thinking about
soccer.
it. That's a good. You know what? That's a
Yeah.
good one. We can definitely put that together. I think that would be cool. Right? Definitely need one on coaching for sure.
Yeah.
Right? And especially being a female, and
Yeah.
being a coach. There's plenty of. I mean, there's so many women that want to be agents. They want to be coaches, but they don't even know where to start.
Right.
They don't even know where to start. They don't know where to start. They're intimidated. And I try to tell them all the time. I mean, I had someone reach out to me the other day on social media, and they were like, the fact that you responded was like everything. And I
Right.
was like, well, I do my best to respond to everything, time within a certain time
Yeah.
frame. But I always respond, whether it's going to be what you want to hear
Right.
or,
Yeah, it's just
I'm going
common
to respond.
courtesy. I think women are a
Right.
lot better at that sometimes.
Yes. And that's probably why I'm so persistent with the men. I'm like, okay, so are we going to get an answer? There are times where I'm trying to figure out what's the profile of what you guys are looking for your team. And
Right.
I may reach out a week. I'm like, man, they still didn't get back to me. Like, okay, I may send you a text. I may, call you. But it's like, it's just us in our nature to, be persistent, but also to, like you said, because we have that common courtesy to say, okay, we're going to respond. And it's not to say that men don't do that either, but it's just a lot. It takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
It takes a lot longer.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
and we can talk open and honestly. These are our opinions,
Absolutely.
and that's
Yes.
that's why it's part of the reason why I'm doing the podcast, is so we can actually
Yes.
have some real talk going on.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so we've got a couple more minutes. Is there
Sure.
anything that you want to talk about before I kind of wrap us up? Any words of wisdom,
Um,
any advice you might give to someone coming
yeah.
into the business?
So my advice to women who are looking to, let's start on the playing side.
Okay.
Um, Practice, practice, practice. Train as hard as you can. Be open. Be very open to criticism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough industry. It's a tough space to be in. And if you are not open to criticism and always feel like you're gonna have a very hard time even entering into
Mm-hmm.
this game. So being open, of course, working on your technical skills, go to the basics and learn the game. Learn the game inside out.
Yep.
That means watching numerous amount of games. Do that. Learn the game inside out. Talk to coaches if you can, just to get feedback. The more advice you get, the better prepared you'll be as well. Um, that's on the playing side. And also to understand that if let's say you go to a trial and you don't make it, once again, take that criticism,
Mm-hmm.
work on it.
Yep.
That's how you can be better, so that the next time you go to your next trial, you'll know what to do then. And also understand that everything happens for a reason, and you'll get the right opportunity when the timing is right.
Right.
And on the business side, just wanting to be an agent or an attorney, sporting director, scout, coach. I'd say just keep being persistent. Once again, a lot of the same advice of being a player is understanding the game. You got to understand the game. If you want to be an agent, you need to understand the game. You need to know who the power players are. You need to make sure you are networking and putting yourself out there. And this could be applied to everything, honestly. Network, put yourself out there, study.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times I've met people who either wanted to be an agent and couldn't tell me, they couldn't even name all the teams in NWSL.
That's a problem.
Yeah. They couldn't name the teams. They couldn't name the coaches. They couldn't name certain things. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy because I could name them.
Right.
And I'm like, because you have to study.
Yeah.
You have to study, understand the process, understand how many teams there are, understand the expansion draft, understand the college draft, understand, the trade window and what that means, and understand the difference between playing in America versus playing in Europe or Australia or any of these other countries. There's so much information out there.
Yeah.
It's hard to intake everything, but if you develop a system, you can definitely intake a majority of it. And most of all, to know your players. I've met agents who they couldn't even point out their player to me because they have so many. They're more like, I just want to sign 20 players and can't even tell you who the player is they're trying to pitch to a coach.
Yeah.
So know your players, know your stuff, know your business.
Yeah.
Those are the words of wisdom that I could offer.
Those are great words of wisdom. Absolutely. And that's, that's the one thing. Sport is a tough business and you're going to fail.
Yes,
you're going to get, if you don't like the word no, like you're in the wrong business. And
yeah, that's right.
You have to be able to say, okay, well, that's not my door to have opened. And let me go knock on the next door, whether you're a player, whether you're, a GM, whether you're a coach, whatever. Like it's definitely not for the weak-hearted or the thin-skinned.
It's not at all. And if you don't like hearing the word no, then like you said, this is not for you.
Yeah.
No to me sometimes could be maybe. No to me is just a few steps before I turn it backwards and it says on. Yeah. So
there you
go. So get used to it though. No, I'm so immune to hearing no that when I hear yes, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah. You're like, sure? That was too easy.
I have to ask like 3 times. I have like a 3-time rule. Like, okay, ask 1 more time. Okay, ask a 3rd time. Okay, yes, they mean it. Okay, great. So that no just turned into an on. I love
that. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna write that down.
Yes.
No backwards is on. Love it.
Yes.
Well, Maggie, I am so excited, A, to have you as my agent, B, to be working side by side with you within Women in Soccer. And again, for those of you listening, Women in Soccer is a great network for connection. Go online, check us out at womeninsoccer.com. And, just
one more thing too.
Yeah, sure.
One more thing. Join Women in Soccer.
Yes.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in existence. Obviously you heard from women like Carrie, amazing. So just imagine, how many other amazing board members and just expert members that we have. Of course, the founders, Courtney, Rachel, Pip, love you guys. Join. If you're looking for that community within soccer, that is where you should be.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. That's where it's at. So Maggie, thank you so much for joining me on Women Talking Soccer. And for all of our listeners, I know Maggie, she's a wealth of knowledge. So thank you from me for inspiring and empowering me to keep going within this crazy business. So much positive things to come in the future. I will be seeing you on webinars and everything within Women in Soccer. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate you coming on and giving us your time.
Of course. Thank you.
All right.